Hi, okay, so today this is our SIOP resource folder, and I'm just going to walk you through the different parts of the SIOP folder and point out things to you that you can use and reference in your own classroom. So we have our first page, our title page, and the different parts of the instruction. So first we have lesson preparation, and as you can see it has 6 indicators, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we have a flip book of how to just start an objective, tips for language objectives, and presenting objectives that you can use when you're starting to plan your lesson. Then over here we have our higher order language objective verbs and content objective verbs that will engage your student in order to engage them in the content objective and wonder what they are going to be learning about. Also here at the bottom we have a checklist that you need to make sure that you are checking off whenever you're planning a lesson, just to make sure that you're preparing your lesson the best that you can in order to assess and help your students. Then also we have related literature, demonstrations, hands-on, pictures and visuals, and then multimedia. Next we have building background knowledge, and it has 3 indicators, 7, 8, and 9. Here we have 2 flip books, question stems, connecting to new content. So this is basically asking your students if they know anything about the content that you're about to learn about or teach about or they're going to learn about. And then you have activating prior knowledge question stems. So you can talk to your children about their personal connections possibly to what y'all are going to be learning about. And then here we have just our academic vocabulary that we always need to, be aware of and refer to when we're building background knowledge, just so they understand what is happening. And then we have different questions and resources that you can use to keep you on track in order to help you build background knowledge in your lessons. And then down here we have our analogy bridge, which is over here. It's student background here. It's student background and then prior knowledge, and then we have between that is just the things that you will work on with your student in order to cross over the bridge. So graphic organizers, word banks, outlines, class notes, PowerPoint slides that you can print off for them, or charts, and that'll eventually lead you over to the new content and language concepts. Just so they understand what's going on and you can bridge them over to what they're supposed to know. Next, we have our comprehensible input, and it has 3 indicators, 10, 11, and 12. The indicator variety of techniques is number 12, and it's just used to make concepts clear. So you can just use modeling, visuals, hand-on activities, anything like that. We have a checklist here as well to refer to what can help us speak slowly. That way our ELLs can understand what we're saying, as well. It will remind you to enunciate your words so they can pick up the sounds and syllables of the words. So you just always need to make sure you're following this checklist to make the concept more clear for your students, including just all students across the board and especially your ELLs. Then this diagram down here basically shows just like what your student would be thinking or could be thinking if they're not understanding you. And so you can just, gear this towards any ELLs or confused students in your classroom. She talks too fast. I don't understand the words she's saying. I don't understand the directions. She doesn't explain too good. It helps when she comes to my desk and shows me. So you just need to keep these in mind every time that you're giving instruction or anything that may be confusing to the students. Just make sure that you're always coherent and just understanding of what they could be going through in order to better help them succeed. Next, we have our strategies. This has 3 indicators. 13, 14, and 15. And then here we have our strategy ladder. And so it's paraphrase, think aloud, reinforce, pronunciate, slow speech, and repetition. So these are all just things that you need to remember in order to just make sure that your student is understanding what's going on. And then here is our ESL strategy packet. And so these have different strategies from my classmates of just things that they researched and found out. Like this one's the KWL charts and data sheets, and then this one is tutorials and then checking for understanding and verb action. So this will just go and show you, if you are ever looking back at this, what are effective strategies to help your ELLs and your struggling students just understand what is going on in a easier and clearer sense. Next is our, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Next is our interaction. This has 4 indicators, 16, 17, 18, and 19. The images or diagrams of this page are reminders of what to do during interaction. So the timer is used just to be timely when you're giving students interaction, just to make sure you're giving them enough time to, talk to people and really get their thoughts out. Also, do not interrupt your students when they are having interaction, because it takes a lot of, courage and confidence in order to open up to your other students in their classroom, so you don't want to cut them off without having their voice be heard. Then you need to give additional time to your interactions as well. You always need to be patient in whatever you're doing with your children, because, some will take longer than others, so you just need to be patient in the timing. Then we have these 2 flip books, interaction and grouping, to refer to when you have your class interact during a lesson. So how you group them and just like the types of interaction. So, student participation, use writing for interaction, thoughtful questioning, meaningful language opportunities, and then for grouping, guided instruction, vary and balance groups, provide background knowledge, and engaging activities. So that'll just help them understand what's expected when they're interacting with their peers. And you can just refer to this section when you're planning a lesson and want to provide appropriate interaction between all of your students equally. So then next we have lesson delivery. And so lesson delivery has okay, never mind, go back to this. Next, we have practice and application right under interaction. I got kind of confused. It's all in one. So we have 20, 21, and 22. So that's the 3 indicators. This diagram down here really helps me just understand what practice and application means, because all of the hands remind me that it's a hands-on, interaction with your students. They'll say different things like readers, theater, and role plays. So during like ELAR, character diaries, foldables, and flip charts. So if you're in science and doing like a fun experiment, or if you're in math and learning about different, vocabulary like multiply, divide, add, subtract, you could do a cool flip chart. Manipulative movement, hands-on games, and electronic games. So like using the smartboard and everything, just for practice and application. This will just really help them understand what's going on if they're especially kinesthetic learners. Okay, so now back to lesson delivery. We have lesson delivery. This has 4 indicators, 23, 24, 25, and 26. The diagrams with this show that you should be timely, like allocated time, subjects and skill, academic learning, so that'd be like the tests and the tested material that you were going to go over, and then engaged time, which is active participation. So it says 90% to 100%. So your students should be 90% of the time to 100% of the time actively engaged in your lesson. So then the diagrams up here are just, assessed, measurable, observable, and pace the lesson. So that just goes to show that, like, you're always, teaching and doing activities that are measurable. So you can assess the activities as well as pace the lesson. So that'll be like giving them enough time, allowing them to do and work through what they need to. So just pacing the lesson. You can observe their progress and what they are doing and making sure they're on the right track. So this is just, you need to always display the objective. It's student friendly, and you need to review the objective whenever you're done. And then over here is ideas for lesson delivery. So like e-journals and wikis or a podcast, writing headlines. You can give them a story and they could be interactive and come up with their own news headline. Chunk and chew or think, pair, share. I'm really like think, pair, share. That's a strategy that I also have in my strategy booklet. So that is just lesson delivery. It's basically just so you can ensure that your lesson delivery is coherent and understanding for every student. Okay, so then we have review and assessment. And so review and assessment has 4 indicators. It has 27, 28, 29, and 30. Informal assessment and then creative formal assessments. You can use this to refer back to in order to decide like how you're going to assess your students on the content of your lesson. So you can just see, looking back like at the lesson that you taught, you can come here and figure out how you want to assess them, whether it's informal or, creative. So like some informals that you could choose from is like observations, like here in lesson delivery, like it's observable. You could do games, retelling, response boards. If they all have their own whiteboard, you can just have them give a quick response so you can gauge it that way of whether they learned the lesson or not. And then over here you have creative formal assessments. So basically you can create a poster, they can make a PowerPoint presentation for just to show like what they learned, and then you can make a timeline of, say you're doing history, you can do a timeline of like the American Revolution, so then you could gauge and understand if they know like all the parts to the American Revolution, who was involved, what happened and when, as well as like write and perform a skit, write a poem, or just perform a puppet show. So these are also hands-on but also formal assessments for the students. So this would just be like a good way for the ELLs as well, because you have synonyms and antonyms that they will understand. You can even use words in their own language that they would understand, and then they could give you an English synonym or antonym. Also, multiple meaning words in different multiple exposure, use analogy, and these are just basically the wrap-up techniques that you can use in order to just assess your student even more. So that is the end of our foldable part. But next we have the ELPs. They're each in here, behind here. So you can just pull those out so you can understand like what the ELPs are if you ever have questions, or just make sure that you're on the right track with your lesson. Next we have the ELL starter kit. For educators, so that's just tools for like monitoring your language skills. Okay, that door just opened, that's creepy. Okay, sorry. Our ELL starter kit for educators, you can refer to just kick your students off the first of the year, just so you understand like how you can first, dive in with your students and just make sure they feel welcome in your classroom. Next, we have the ELPs and the TELPAS. So it has all the rubrics for listening, speaking, reading, writing. So beginner, intermediate, advanced, high. So you can use this whenever you are grading or, rating your students for the TELPAS to turn into your school counselor, just so you have this for quick reference. And then we have the asking effective questions. So this is great because you can use it in order to gauge better questions to ask over your lesson for clarification. So you can just basically anticipate like what they're thinking. You can pose open questions, like open-ended questions, just for them to really dig deep into what they have learned, rather than you basically giving it to them with like a multiple choice or not so much an open-ended, but basically telling them and them having to agree yes or no. So that will help them as well. That is the end of our SIOP resource folder. Again, this is just like a great way for you to help your ELLs in your classroom and just use this as a guide in all of your lessons.